Healing is a beautiful process, but it's not always pretty. Sometimes it's raw, messy, and filled with tear-stained nights. But those moments, they're when the real transformation begins. Today, I'm taking you behind the scenes of my healing journey. It's not the picture-perfect progress people imagine, but it's real and it's beautiful in its own way. I'll share moments when it felt like I wasn't healing at all and how God's love carried me through, even when I couldn't see it. There were nights when I felt like I was drowning in my own tears. My pillow knew my pain in ways no one else could. And in those moments, this poem poured out of me, my heart speaking its truth. So let me take you back to a night when my tears stained my pillow. I wrote a poem during one of my hardest seasons called Tear Stained Pillow. And I want to share it with you because it captures the rawness of those moments. Tear stains on my pillow. It holds the stories I dare not say. Tonight I fall to my knees in despair and to kneel and pray. I pray for peace, a peace out of reach. While waging war within my mind, the battlefield is fierce, relentless, and still I search for calm to find. Tears fall, each one a silent confession, marking my pillow with what I've done. Moments of laughter now feel hollow. The joy, like a fleeting dream, is gone. This tear-stained pillow knows my secrets, the words too heavy to leave my lips. Makeup smeared, eyes rimmed with sorrow, tossing, turning through endless shifts. I want to tell the world my story, to lift the weight that holds me down. But fear keeps me bound in silence as my thoughts threaten to drown. So I share with you, God, the only one who sees me as I am undone. You know the pain I cannot bear, and hold me close within your care. So as I lay me down to sleep, I clutch my pillow tight. Tears fall as I whisper prayers, hoping peace will find me tonight. They say joy comes in the morning, but will I make it through? I cling to this tear-stained pillow, thinking only if they knew. If only I could live my truth, unashamed, unbroken, and free. But for now, I pour my heart to you and pray you'll restore all that's me. Will I feel the light of morning? Will your promises break through? Will I rise with the warmth of the sun and believe everything you've said is true? Help me, Lord, feel like I'm drowning, yet still I hold my pillow tight, trusting you'll save me and guide me through this long and lonely night. So as I lay my head to rest, I clutch my pillow tight. Tears mix with prayers of longing. God, bring me peace tonight. Hello, hello, hello. This is Linda, aka Lou, your host, and welcome to another episode of Say It Forward with Lou. We are a community of healing, growth, creativity, and positivity. So let's dive in and sift through today's topic and chat. So in saying that, we are also a community where we are going to explore the real, the raw, and the transformative journey of healing, growth, and faith. Today's episode is deeply personal. It's titled, Healing is Beautiful, but It's Not Always Pretty. Healing is often portrayed as this serene, magical process where everything falls into place, right? Effortlessly. But can we be real? If we're really real about it, healing is beautiful, yes, but it can also be complex and messy, uncomfortable, and just sometimes downright ugly. And that's okay, because those moments hold the greatest transformation. And in those raw moments, when the tears fall and the pain feels unbearable, that's when the most beautiful transformations take place. The poem that I read in the introduction, Tear Stained Pillow, it's one that I wrote, and it's a snapshot of one of the hardest seasons of my life. It's raw and it's vulnerable, and it's a window into the battlefield of my mind at the time as I fought for healing and for peace. And that poem holds so much of my truth. It reminds me of the nights I cried out to God, wondering if He could hear me. But those tear-stained nights were also when He wrapped His arms around me and whispered, "I'm here." And sometimes the tears we shed are the seeds of our healing. It doesn't feel like progress in the moment, right? But those tears water the ground for growth. And there were times I felt like I was just stuck, like I was making no movement, like the pain would never end. But looking back, I realized those moments were when God was doing the most powerful work within me. Because the reality is, no one knows what it was like when God wrapped His arms around me. No one knows the cost of what I've been through. I know this: I don't look like what I've been through, and that's truly because of Him. And if you feel like you're not making progress, right, I want you to know those tear-filled nights are not wasted. God is using every moment, every tear to shape you into something beautiful. And so today, I'm taking you behind the scenes of my healing journey, the raw, the unfiltered, and the honest. We'll explore what progress looks like when it doesn't feel like progress, right? How God shows up in the darkest moments, and why the tears we cry are part of the most beautiful transformation. So when I wrote that poem, I was in the middle of a major life transition, a major storm, and my pillow truly became my confidant, right? Soaking up tears that I couldn't share with anyone else, or thought I couldn't share with anyone else. And while it felt like I was drowning in pain, something was happening beneath the surface. And I remember one night vividly, on my knees, crying out to God, asking, when will this pain end? Will I ever feel whole again? And in that moment, I didn't realize that my tears were watering the seeds God had planted for my healing. What felt like breakdown was actually becoming my breakthrough. And think about, like, when you work out, right? You work out, you're lifting weights, your muscles feel sore, right? And it seems like you're not getting stronger, but that soreness that you're feeling, it's proof that your muscles are rebuilding. And healing works in the same way. It doesn't feel good, but it does make you stronger, right? And so that pillow held my tears, my secrets, my pain. But as I reflect now, I see that those tears were a part of my healing. They were watering something beautiful, even when I couldn't see it. So my question for you is, what's your version of a tear-stained pillow? Maybe it's a journal filled with your struggles, or maybe it's the quiet moments. I've had a lot of those where no one else sees your pain. And I want you to take a moment to reflect. Where do you bring your pain? And how can you invite God into those moments, right? And can you trust that even in those moments, God is working within you? Because the reality is truly, no one knows what it's like when God wrapped his arms around me. And I can't fully explain it, but it felt like his love carrying me through. It didn't take the pain away instantly, but it gave me the strength to keep going. And when I think about that, I was reminded of the CeCe Winans song, Alabaster Box. And she sings, "You don't know the cost of the oil in my alabaster box," right? And this song speaks to the story of the woman in Luke 7:37 through 38. And it goes on, who poured out her most precious possession, her alabaster jar of perfume, of oil, on Jesus's feet. And that oil, represented her pain, her past, and her sacrifice. And she didn't hold anything back. And in that act, she found healing and redemption from Jesus. And for me, my alabaster box was my tears and my brokenness and the pieces of myself that I thought I'd never recover. So my question is, what's in your alabaster box? What are you holding on to that you need to pour out to God? Because I had moments when I felt like I couldn't move forward. Nights when I cried so hard, I thought, this can't be healing, right? But in those moments, when I poured out my pain to God, I began to heal and recognize God is truly my healer. And the woman with the alabaster jar, it reminds us that healing comes at a cost. The oil is expensive because it represents your sacrifices and your struggles and your surrender. And yet God sees the cost and honors it. So think about your own journey. What's in your alabaster box? What do you need to pour at Jesus's feet today? And in the same regard, in the same line of thinking, another story that resonates with me is the story of the widow with the oil. And that's 2 Kings 4:1 through 7. And it's another powerful reminder of God's provision in our healing. This woman was at her breaking point, right? Where she felt like she had nothing left but a small jar of oil, and her situation felt hopeless. But when she brought what little she had, right, and to the prophet Elijah, and he asked, "What do you have in your house?" And she said, "I only have this jar of oil." And he told her to get more jars and to start pouring the oil and filling the jars with oil. And what happened is God multiplied it into more than enough, right? And when I reflect on my own journey and see parallels, there were moments when I felt like I had nothing left, just a small jar of oil, so to speak. But God showed me that what I had was enough for him to work with. Starting this podcast, for example, felt like a huge leap of faith. I didn't have the best equipment, the perfect setup, or even the confidence I thought I needed. But like the widow, I was asked, what do you have already in your house? And God took what I had, my voice, my experiences, and used it to bless others. And sometimes we feel like we have to wait until we're fully healed or have everything together before we can move forward. But God is saying, what do you already have? Let me work with that. Healing and progress come when we trust him with the little that we have. So if you're feeling stuck, remember the widow. God isn't asking you to have it all figured out. He's asking you to bring what you have, no matter how small it feels, and he will multiply it. Because the reality is, and I've said this and we've talked about this in other episodes, healing doesn't look like a straight line, right? It's not linear. It's complex, and it's just downright messy sometimes, right? And there are moments when you feel like you're moving backwards, and it can be so discouraging. But can I tell you something? Those messy moments, those moments where you feel like you're moving backwards, are where the most progress happens. Because I remember a time when I thought I was doing so well, and then a random thought triggered within me. And I felt like I was going to start to spiral, right? I cried and I doubted, and I felt like I was back at square one. But looking back, I see those moments were a part of the process. They forced me to confront what I was still holding on to and let it go. And just like the widow didn't see the miracle until she obeyed Elisha's instructions and started pouring the oil, the same is true for us. Healing requires action, whether it's praying, journaling, going and using the resource of therapy and counseling, choosing to get out of bed when you don't feel like it. We have to start to move. We have to do something. It requires action. And so what can you do? Well, some 3 things that help me on my journey, and they're simple things, but are very impactful. 1, give yourself grace. Allow yourself to accept God's grace. Give yourself the grace to accept God's grace, right? Because progress doesn't mean perfection. Trust the process. God is working even when you don't see it. And celebrate the small wins. I had to really learn to do that, because each step forward, no matter how small you think it is a victory in the right direction. So my question is, what small step can you take today? Is it journaling something, reaching out to a trusted friend, seeking the resource of counseling or therapy, or just praying for the strength to keep going? Because when you really think about it, like when I really just really ponder on and envision and picture a woman walking into a room full of people who are already judging her, and she kneels at Jesus' feet, breaks her alabaster jar, and pours out the oil, her most valuable possession. And the room fills with the aroma of her sacrifice. And Jesus, knowing the weight of her gift, defends her against the critics. That's the power of her surrender. So, what's the small jar of oil in your life? Is it a tiny spark of hope? A skill you haven't used in years? The courage to take one small step? God is saying, whatever it is, bring that to me. And it might feel insignificant, but in His hands, it can overflow and bless not just you, but those around you. And for real, like, listen, I thought I had to have my life together before I came to God. I was like, well, let me clean up this mess first. You know how like you have a house cleaning company, a cleaning company. Why do we want to clean the house before we get the house clean? Like, does that, right? Like, I felt like my mess had to be fully cleaned up before I came to God, right? And then I realized, and God already knows my mess, right? And in fact, He probably looked at me like, girl, if you don't bring that over here so I can fix it, right? Because I'll admit, there were times I thought, God, do you really need all of my mess? Like, all of it? That mess? This mess? That mess too? Oh, that mess too? And I just imagine Him side-eyeing me like, girl, bring it all. I've got you, right? And isn't that just like Him? He doesn't need us to clean ourselves up first. He takes us as we are, tear-stained, pillow, and all. So as I look back on my journey, I can say this: healing is beautiful because it brought me closer to God. And it's not about erasing the pain, but it's about finding purpose in it. Thank goodness I do not look like what I've been through. And that's because God wrapped his love around me. So I want to leave you with this verse, Psalm 56:8. You keep track of all my sorrows. You have collected all my tears in your bottle. You have recorded each one in your book. God sees every tear you cry, and he's using them to write a story of redemption. Because I remember nights, several nights, one night in particular, though. I was laying in bed, staring at the ceiling and just sobbing. And just, I couldn't pray, couldn't even form the words to attempt to pray at that time. And finally, all I could do to muster up and say, God help me. And in that moment, I felt this warmth, like God literally wrapping his arms around me saying, I've got you. And what's amazing is that those tear-stained nights are often where the healing begins. When you're at the end of yourself and you feel like you're at the end of yourself, that's where God steps in and shows you his strength. For me, my alabaster jar was full of broken dreams and unmet expectations and a host of other things that I could list. And I had to lay it all down, every tear, every regret. And just like Jesus honored the woman's sacrifice, he honors ours. He takes the pieces of our pain and turns them into something beautiful, right? And here's what people don't see about the journey of healing, right? They see the glow up, as they say, right? The smiles and the strengths and then the happy post and all the things, the glam and the glitz and the things that just look good, right? They don't see the nights crying out to God, using the resource of therapy sessions, the moments I question if I was really healing at all, the late night panic attacks, the moments of self-doubt, the days where it feels like you're taking one step forward and two steps back. And I remember one time in the height of going through my divorce, and I was at the grocery store, and I saw something just randomly triggered a memory, and I had to literally leave my car and go sit in the car. And I just took a few moments crying because it felt like in that moment, I was just never going to get past what was going on. But again, reiterating, healing isn't linear. And some days you feel like you're thriving, and other days you feel like you're barely surviving. And that's okay, because progress isn't always visible, but it is happening. And just like, again, we said, when you're working out, your muscles ache, it's because they're growing, right? And the same is true for your soul. Psalm 35 says, weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. And I clung to that verse because I needed to believe that the morning would come. And let me tell you, it does. One day I woke up and I realized the tears weren't coming as often. The weight on my chest felt a little lighter, right? That's the beauty of healing. And you don't notice the change right away, but one day you look back and you see how far you've come. So if you're sitting there right now with your tear-stained pillow, just know you are not alone. God is with you, and he is working even when you can't see it. So I want to pause here and ask you again, what's in your alabaster box? What's in your house like the widow's oil? What's the thing you're holding on to that God is asking you to surrender? Maybe it's a broken relationship, a dream you've given up on, or even the pain you've been carrying for years. take a moment this week and reflect on that. Journal about it. Pray over it. And if you feel led, share it with someone you trust. Because healing starts with acknowledging where you are. For me, my small jar of oil was the courage to get up each day and face the pain. It was the decision to use the resource of therapy, to lean into my source of God. And even when it felt overwhelming, it was those simple prayers. God, I don't know what to do, but I trust you. And just like he multiplied the widow's oil, God multiplied my strength, my joy, and my hope. So this week, again, I challenge you to write down one step you can take. It might be as simple as praying for the first time in months or years, right? Scheduling a counseling appointment, forgiving someone who hurt you, whatever it is. Remember, every small step is progress. Maybe today you feel like you have nothing left, just a little hope, a little faith. But I'm here to tell you that God can take your small jar of oil and multiply it. And for me, again, my oil was simply saying, God, I need your help. God, I'm tired. Help me. And he did. So today, as we get ready to wrap up, I just want to say, Father, we thank you for being with us in our mess and our healing. Thank you for seeing our tears, our pain, and our small jars of oil, and for using them for something greater. Lord, help us to trust you with our brokenness and to take the next step toward healing. Wrap us in your love as we pour out our hearts to you. In your mighty name we pray. Amen. So thank you, thank you, thank you for tuning into this episode of Say It Forward with Lou. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who could use a little inspiration. Follow me on my social media at sayitforward_podcast, and let's keep the conversation going. And as always, until next time, stay tuned, stay a while, and let's continue to say it forward together. I look forward to chatting with you soon. Take care.